over his sprint hiccups so far this season, or is this another day where Marc Marquez injects some life back into his World Championship defence?
Yeah, Mark 5th in the World Championship coming into this round 5. Speaking of number 5s, let's have a look at Joan Zarco, the 35-year-old Frenchman, with a bit of work to do, starting from the middle of that 4th row of the grid here in Le Mans today and tomorrow. His hopes of a top qualifying position not helped by a late fall at turn 13 in this morning's FP2 session. But the end of all the drama, keeping his cool in some high-pressure situations, was Pecco Bagnaia, the 29-year-old Italian. Ended Friday's track action here in Le Mans on his backside, a crash at La Chapelle at turn 6. But he has been superb so far on sprint Saturday. Looked really, really strong this morning in FP2 on warm Michelin rubber. And when it came to time attacks, the 129.634, as mentioned, Bagnaia on the head of the grid here in Le Mans for the 3rd time. He's 28th MotoGP pole position, 35th of his Grand Prix career. Dare we say it? Dare we say it? Is Bagnaia back in 2026?
Well, it was a question we asked for a lot of 2025 too, wasn't it, for Pecco Bagnaia? Of course, the one time this year where he has started somewhere near the front, which was in Austin, where he qualified 4th. He then did lead for 99% of the sprint before Jorge Martin overhauled him on that final lap. So Bagnaia, generally when he qualifies well, that is a pretty good sign. Marc Marquez, well, good signs today, certainly better signs than we saw from the world champion yesterday when he ended the day outside of the top 10. It's a statistical quirk, isn't it? It's unusual when the fastest rider in qualifying doesn't take pole position. But that's what we got earlier on today with Marc Marquez, who I guess produced a lap that I guess the brain was switched off, the eyes were closed, and he hoped for the best, and he got a 129.2 to take his place in qualifying 2, but he was picked at the post in the end by Pecco Bagnaia this morning. Just 12 thousandths separated them.
Ducati undefeated in the 3 previous sprints here in Le Mans. 22 sprints Marc Marquez has contested for the factory Ducati team. His win record is astonishing. He's won 16 of those 22. Can he make it win number 18 in sprints overall? Perhaps missing out a little bit later on, perhaps with better pace than his grid position suggests, is Jorge Martin on the factory Aprilia. Jorge, without any question, is certainly one of the fastest riders in race trim throughout this weekend. But once again, he's just lacking that killer instinct, that explosive one-lap pace on the factory Aprilia. This is the calling card for Jorge Martin in Q2 so far this year. 5th, 5th, 7th, 7th, and slightly worse ahead of this French Grand Prix, a season worst 8th place for Martin, who on his last race visit here, of course, to Le Mans, was a double winner, winning the sprint and the Grand Prix in brilliant fashion in 2024.
Yeah, we had such high hopes for Jorge Martin coming into this weekend after his Jerez test ended pretty positively. He was very bullish, wasn't he, with his step forward that he felt he took at the Jerez test, although there haven't been many signs of that reflected so far this weekend. Here's one of your stars of Super Saturday so far, of course, cheered on by a partisan home crowd. Fabio Quartararo joined Marc Marquez in the top 2 in qualifying 1, and for the 2nd time this year on the V4 Yamaha, which is clearly the least competitive of the 5 manufacturers in MotoGP at the moment. 2nd time this year, Fabio Quartararo has got himself through Q1 and on to the front 2 rows of the grid.
Without a sprint podium since the Catalan Grand Prix last September. Of course, we make a fairly quick return to Catalonia next weekend for round 6. Fabio Di Gianantonio, well, he continues his excellent qualifying record so far this season, has not started lower than 4th so far. Could it have been better had it not been for a rather bizarre incident towards the end of Q2 when a bee got inside his helmet? A real pest for Fabio Di Gianantonio. He goes from 4th place on the grid. Let's go and get the thoughts, though, of a guy who knows his way around this Bugatti circuit. He was spectacular here in the past. A former great. Sete Giovinazzi.
Yeah, absolutely. As the MotoGP bikes roar into life, and you can just hear the atmosphere from this packed grandstand behind us. Sete, what an atmosphere this is. You were here last year to enjoy what was one of the great MotoGP moments, and I have to say, from what we've seen so far this weekend, pretty difficult to know who the favourite going into this one is.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult, you know. Tomorrow is tomorrow, so all the guys now are just focused in today. It's going to be interesting with this weather, and what happens today for sure is going to be important in order to understand how is everyone going to play tomorrow. So today I think that the temperature is also going to be pretty high, and the tires are going to be okay for this amount of laps, so we'll just have to see. But it's going to be interesting. And also after what we saw in qualifying, with Dijan, Antonio and Mark, and so it's going to be interesting.
They've had plenty of Saturday sort of skirmishes so far. From the outside, what have you made to the start of the year of Marc Marquez as a defending champion? It felt as though this morning he really started to look like himself again, which hasn't been the case in the opening 4 rounds.
I mean, this of course is my personal view, you know, but I don't think Mark is having a good time with his physical condition. This is apart from the physical condition, which is a part that is, I reckon is for sure, it's also in his mind, you know, it's getting him a little bit more nervous than normal, which is absolutely normal, you know. He's having to deal with a new circumstance in a moment that he was not expecting to be having this trouble again, and this is for sure affecting his state of mind. So we'll just have to see. In a short race, maybe it's going to affect him less than in tomorrow, the long race. So we'll have to see.
It'll be fascinating to see. Great to see you here. Enjoy the race.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, good stuff, Jack. As always, thanks to Sepet Gibernau. He's always a strong rider around this hard-braking Bugatti circuit. Marc Marquez, physical. What are the main issues for Marc at the moment? Is it physical? Is it technical? What is not up for debate is he's already given himself a bit of an early mountain to climb in this year's World Championship. 44 points adrift of Marco Bezzecchi. Those two starting alongside each other on the front row of the grid, of course, as Fabio Quartararo comes to the back of the second row in 6th place already, as they do such a fantastic job here. The local organisers whipping the French crowd into a bit of a frenzy pre-sprint here. All the hopes and nation's hopes resting on the shoulders of Quartararo 6, Johan Zarco in 11th place. Well, he knows how to get a tune on 2 wheels around France, doesn't he? Let's go and get the thoughts of Tour de France icon, Tour de France legend Mark Cavendish, who joins Jack.
Yeah, he does indeed, and rather unsurprisingly, he might be able to guess that cheer come in the direction of Johan Zarco and Fabio Quartararo as they take their spots on the grid. Mark, you helped these guys warm up on Thursday with one of our cycling events, but from what we've seen, you did a good job, because everyone has been on good form so far. How much have you enjoyed what you've seen of the action?
It's been great, hasn't it? You know, at least the weather's good here in Le Mans. So okay, we're about tomorrow, but it's always good when it's good weather here. You know, it's been an interesting season to watch, and this is always an interesting circuit. It's one I really like to come to, and no, it's been great. It's really good to see actually Fabio here on the second row for the sprint. Hopefully it's not because it's his own race, because he's going good. You know, he was going really good this morning, and I'm excited to be here and watching it. You know, I love a bit of racing. It's great, isn't it?
You'll have seen year in, year out with the Tour de France how much these fans behind us get behind their own. None more so, none more reflected than the atmosphere they build and how passionate they are for both Fabio and Johan. It really is quite something to experience.
Well, particularly when they see a win like Johan got last year. Like, that's the thing. Like, 71 years I think it was since the last French.
Good knowledge.
And what I know from cycling, you know, the French are passionate. Like, sport is for the every person, you know, and people live and breathe it, and like a champion, and when they can show that and do their country proud, the whole country feels and gets picked up by it, and that's something special for you.
Very quickly, have you got a pre-sprint prediction? Who's the winner?
No, don't do that.
Good idea. Difficult to predict. Cheers, Mark.
Yeah, thanks very much. Tour de France legend, a sprint king himself, of course, on 2 wheels minus an engine. Who's going to be our 2-wheel sprint king here in MotoGP? Marco Bezzecchi then on the front row. It's a real mouth-watering front row of the grid, isn't it? Pecco Bagnaia and Marc Marquez, a couple of our recent MotoGP world champions, by a rider who's trying to take that accolade. Currently leading the World Championship, Marco Bezzecchi, 101 points. Although it's fair to say sprint Saturdays, Lewis, have been his big headache so far this season. He's crashed out in the sprints in Thailand, in America, and most recently in those tricky conditions in Jerez.
Yeah, you have to go back to, I think it's Misano, isn't it, last year, the last time Marco Bezzecchi has won a sprint. In terms of sprint points, he'd be 13th if that were a World Championship all on its own. Fortunately, Sunday's Camp 2, and he's leading the points. It's Pecco Bagnaia who leads the grid, though, from Marc Marquez and the aforementioned championship leader Marco Bezzecchi. On the second row, not that you can see it there, but I promise you, it's Fabio Di Gianantonio starting 4th from Pedro Acosta and Fabio Quartararo. Let's have a second crack at it. Bagnaia, Marc Marquez and Bezzecchi as mentioned, Gian Antonio Costa and Fabio Quartararo, of course, the riders starting 2nd and 6th, both came via Q1. Quartararo has the soft front tyre on, certainly that's our initial information. Mia Martina Nagura on the 3rd row from Alex Marquez, who crashed in qualifying. John Zarco, the 11th place where he qualified last year. We know how that went. Alex Rins 12th from Ralph Fernandez, Bastianini and Marini on row 5. Morbidelli, Toprak Razgatioglu and Diogo Moreira on row 6. Jack Miller 19th. It's been a miserable weekend for both Fermin Aldeguer and Brad Binder. They're both on row 7. The only rider behind them is Tech 3 stand-in Jonas Folger.
So the latest information we have received from Mitch, as you saw on that grid graphic, suggests the only outlier, a bit of a left field pick. I guess he's feeling he's got nothing to really lose. Fabio Quartararo, as it stands at the moment, is the only rider in the 22-strong field who's opted for that Michelin soft compound front tyre. Hottest conditions of the weekend so far. A lot of riders obviously then favouring the better stopping performance, the better braking stability with that hard front tyre. Stop and go, this Le Mans layout. So much demand on the front tyre, particularly when you're looking at the downhill braking zone into Garage there, where you're scrubbing off, 265 kilometres an hour. You're approaching Garage there, turn 8 in 4th gear, and then you're back 3 gears, so about 80 kilometres an hour for that turn number 8. So as we mentioned, Pedro Acosta, well, the 2 factory KTMs at opposite ends of the grid, really. Middle of the 2nd row goes Pedro Acosta. Work through for poor old Brad Binder. A tough day so far for the South African in 21st. What does the boss think of it all? Let's get the thoughts of Aki with Jack.
Yeah, great to be joined by Aki. Pedro, middle of the 2nd row. Felt this morning like he extracted the maximum from his package. What can he do? What would be a good result here in the sprint?
First of all, yesterday was quite good start for us here, and difficult to say if this is maximum. I feel that it was not a perfect lap today, first of all, and his feeling of the bike was really good. I would say that when in the morning cold conditions we need to use soft front tire, maybe this is something like a little bit disadvantage for us. Our bike is really good in entry into the corners, the braking, and let's say we a little bit need to attack into entry into corners to get something extra with our bike. And I hope that now with the harder front option, it's fitting even better for us.
Fingers crossed. Good luck, Aki.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks to Aki. Sounds like he's been joining the French fans in the grandstands, cheering his heart out, doesn't it, Aki? Obviously, a bit of a sore throat for the Finnish boss. Well, then it was a positive weekend so far as the factory Yamaha goes, with both of their riders, Fabio Quartararo and Alex Rins, going into Q2 this morning. Quartararo 6th, Alex Rins 12th. Let's get the thoughts of their boss, Mayora with Jack.
Yeah, absolutely. Mayo, both bikes into Q2 this morning. Just how much of a boost was that for everybody in the factory garage?
Yeah, it's a big boost. This morning, Fabio has been able to put together very good lap times. It was consistent. He also played to check the tire degradation for this afternoon race. But now it's very difficult to have an overview about the race. However, we will try to maximize what we have been able to put together in these 2 days.
Our information is that Fabio, the only rider on the grid to go for the soft front tyre. Is that the case, and what's the thinking behind that?
Actually, we are really discussing now what to do, and the last decision has not been taken yet.
Okay, well, we'll keep a close eye on it. Good luck, Mayo. Thank you.
Sounds like that's going to be a last-minute 11th-hour decision then, as far as Fabio Quartararo's team goes into this sprint. I mean, Yamaha, you feel like they've got absolutely nothing to lose, in particular Quartararo. The Yamaha quartet have scored just 15 points between them so far in this year's MotoGP World Championship, and brought crashing back down to earth a little bit after his heroics here in France has been Alex Marquez. Lewis, he had a bit of a tumble this morning as well in qualifying. His lowest starting position in 13 since he was 11th on the grid at Balaton Park in Hungary. Alex has got some serious work to do coming from the head of that 4th row. Yeah, just to get into the points from there, Igura here on screen, the rider immediately up ahead of him. Alex Marquez was
keen to point out yesterday when he spoke to our colleagues in the broadcast set that this circuit perhaps doesn't suit him quite as much as Jerez did, and that's been reflected in the results so far. So Fabio Di Giannantonio then, he perhaps was disappointed to miss out on the front row of the grid earlier on today. The start is clearly going to be key for Digia. Can he get himself in and amongst the front row action? Pablo Nieto speaking to Jack.
Yeah, you feel that's the huge question, Lewis. As you told me in the lunchtime break, Pablo, a little bit of frustration to be on this second row of the grid, but that's behind you now. We spoke on Friday about the importance of Fabio getting the bike off the line, nailing the starts. Is the plan for him to do anything different to try and improve that area ahead of this?
Yeah, always is difficult, no? But anyway, we're talking that it's really important the first chicane, try to survive that place, because we know it's very easy to go longer, and then over there you are not trouble, no? But anyway, I think yesterday we was very fast. I think now Fabio is on fire, we know. So we have to try to keep pushing, keep working, because it's going to be very hard, but like every Saturday and every Sunday. So let's see.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, Di Giannantonio, thanks Jack, thanks to Pablo Nieto. Fabio Di Giannantonio has just continued this sort of golden run he's found himself on. Best of the Ducati riders so far this season in the championship. He's 30 points going into the sprint behind his compatriot Marco Bezzecchi, who will be taking our latest maximum 12 points on offer on Sprint Saturdays so far this season. Despite all of his great qualifying performances, Digia has only been able to convert one of those so far this season into a Saturday afternoon podium. That was a second from pole position at Goiânia in Brazil.
Have we seen a change here for Fabio Quartararo? It looks like we have. He has joined the rest of the field on the hard front tyre. We did hear from Mayora a moment ago, said it would be a late decision. Looks like the decision now has been taken. I did wonder, because Quartararo did more than sprint distance on the soft front tyre in FP2 earlier on this morning, a session that he did end up fastest in, but track conditions and the temperatures were much cooler than they are now. So clearly the hard front tyre should get up and running and get up to temperature on this opening lap, which I guess would have been the concern.
One of the first riders this weekend to actually experiment with the hard front tyre was Pedro Acosta, who we just saw there on screens, middle of the second row for the 21-year-old. Jack just confirming that Fabio Quartararo has indeed switched to the hard front tyre. So level playing field in terms of Michelin rubber. Every rider on the hard front soft rear tyre. Pedro Acosta, 12 Grand Prix podiums, 12 sprint podiums so far in his MotoGP career. Well, the factory Aprilias, we know that they are always super strong in race trim. Marco Bezzecchi on the front row of the grid looking to extend his world championship lead. And don't discount Jorge Martin from row 3. He's got great race pace as well. Let's get the thoughts of the boss, Paolo Minora with Jack.
Yeah, 4 sprints so far. Marco Bezzecchi has only seen the checkered flag once out of those 4. How big is this, Paolo, mentally for Marco to stop this run? There's been a lot of bad luck involved in that as well, but to make sure it isn't something that starts to play on his mind.
Yeah, for sure. Every race is important for the championship. We don't want to think about, he doesn't want to think about, but to be very honest, it's necessary to get the most we can. For sure, he did a very good time attack, despite of the 23 millisecond and the first split that he lost 0.2 seconds. So we think that he did a great job, and Org as well, because the gap between the first and the last 10th is very short. It will be very tricky today, because the first corner is necessary to take care about it, about the line, to think about the other competitor, but we have a plan, so and we totally trust, as usual, on both of them.
Are Ducati a step ahead so far from what we've seen, or do you feel it's pretty equal?
We think that we have to take care about us. It is 2 small places where we have to improve, as I said to you this morning, and we did something. So looking forward for this race, and it will be very useful, this sprint, for the tomorrow race, the long one. Good luck. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks to Aprilia boss Paolo Minora. It feels like the last sort of 10-11 months or so MotoGP has been an Italian duel between Aprilia and Ducati. Aprilia, in terms of this year's championship, clearly have the upper hand. The onus in this sprint is going to be on Bagnaia, and Marc Marquez getting a good start, because what we have seen repeatedly so far in 2026 is that factory Aprilia, that RSGP, is an absolute rocket ship off the start. Marco Bezzecchi, that's a key reason why he was able to lead 121 successive Grand Prix. That's because, one, he qualified well, but two, the Aprilia launched off the line so well. So going to be interesting to see how Bagnaia and Marc Marquez cope with a potentially fast starting Bezzecchi alongside them.
Let's head back down to the grid then and hear from Davide Tardozzi with his rider starting first and second. Davide's with Jack.
Davide, I have to say, I'm pretty excited for this one. You guys first and second on the grid for the first time this year. Are you ready to make a statement?
We'll see, because I'm sure that Bezzecchi will try very hard first lap. Then we'll see. But there are at least 4 or 5 riders that can fight for the podium. Hope that our two will be there, but anyway, the most important thing is to collect points for the championship.
Are you slightly nervous, hoping that these Jerez test improvements are going to be shown on track?
Always here in Le Mans for the first corner.
Good luck.
Important to collect points is the message from Ducati boss Davide Tardozzi. Thanks, Jack. That message, I mean, who would have thought coming into round 5 of the championship, the factory Ducatis 5th and 9th in the overall standings, coming into our second European clash of the campaign.
Yeah, although the success that has been hard to come by for the factory Ducati team has come in sprints so far this year. Marc Marquez has won 2 and lost another on the very last lap, of course, in Buriram. Pecco Bagnaia has been second, silver medal in the last 2 sprints. Of course, lost one of his potential sprint wins on the last lap when Martin passed him in Austin. So Saturday's success has been easier to come by for the factory Ducati team so far. But yeah, Davide Tardozzi is right to point to the first corner. It's officially turn 3, of course, on the track map, the Dunlop chicane. Bagnaia's sprint and Grand Prix ended there last year.
Luca Marini, we just saw a quick glimpse of the Italian. His weekend started in brilliant fashion. Fastest in FP1 yesterday, but it's been downhill ever since. Marini 15th on the grid. The 2 factory Hondas, Marini 15th, Joan Mir heading row 3 in 7th place. So some embraces, some good luck messages from his Aprilia crew to Marco Bezzecchi. Can he stop this sprint slump so far in 2026? He's on the front row in 3rd place. Marc Marquez, after that blistering all-time lap record this morning, goes from the middle of the front row in 2nd place. But for the first time in 2026, the first time since Sepang last year when he did win the sprint from pole position, here on pole in France, Pecco Bagnaia. MotoGP's second stop on European soil in 2026 brings us to an iconic, to a classic Grand Prix venue. Welcome one and all to the Bugatti circuit here in Le Mans. Welcome to the Michelin Grand Prix of France. Are we going to get some more sprint fireworks in France following a truly incredible qualifying session this morning? The top 10 at the end of Q2 earlier on today, covered by just, 0.297 of a second. It's the second closest Q2 top 10 since that qualifying format was introduced 13 years ago, back in 2013. The only closer top 10 in the MotoGP Q2 came at the Styrian Grand Prix at the Red Bull Ring 6 years ago in 2020. All the home hopes a nation expects Fabio Quartararo and Johann Zarco to deliver another spectacular result tomorrow in the main Grand Prix, of course. Over 27 laps here in northwest France. Can Johann Zarco make it back-to-back wins in front of what potentially could be yet another record crowd? It's a beautiful day, it's great weather. Let's hope we're going to get some great racing in this upcoming 13-lap sprint, a sprint which will see Marco Bezzecchi take an 11-point lead in the World Championship into our 5th sprint of the campaign. If Marco Bezzecchi is to surrender the lead in the standings at the end of the sprint, he's going to have another DNF, which has happened already so far 3 times in 2026, and his teammate Jorge Martin is going to have to fight his way through in the middle of the 3rd row in 8th to win this sprint. Not the most remote of possibilities, given the fact that, as you can see on screens, Jorge Martin's a bit of a prolific winner in the sprint format. The last time Pecco Bagnaia started a MotoGP race from pole position in the sweltering heat of Malaysia on the Sepang International Circuit last year, he did go on to take the victory and claim the gold medal on the Tissot sprint on that occasion. First time though in 2026, he will fire away from pole position. Not a new territory here in Le Mans for Pecco, on pole here in 2022 and in 2023. Alongside him on that front row, Marc Marquez. 3rd time in the last 4 French Grand Prix that Marc is starting from 2nd place on the grid, and all eyes on what is traditionally a very fast-starting factory Aprilia. Marco Bezzecchi, can his sprint slump end here this afternoon? 22 riders then come to the grid. Jonas Folger in at Tech 3 KTM for the injured Maverick Vinales. All riders on the Michelin hard front tyre, soft rear tyre. Just waiting here in the hottest conditions of the weekend so far. Finally then, after a little bit of a delay, we have the green flag waving and clearing shortly. At the back, riders in position, primed and ready. Lights out, we're racing here in the sprint in Le Mans. Big wheelie off the line for the number 49 bike of Fabio Di Giannantonio, who's going backwards. Was the whole shot device engaged there at all for Digia? As Marco Bezzecchi once again lining off the line on the factory Aprilia, and Jorge Martin has come from 8th to lead. Jorge Martin with an absolute show-stopping start to this sprint. But we said the Aprilia start fast. Martin from 8th to 1st.
Is Jorge Martin serious? He went right up the inside of the factory Ducatis through turn 2 and then steamed round the outside of his teammate Marco Bezzecchi. It wasn't a remote possibility for Jorge Martin to win this sprint.
Unbelievable. What a start. What a first couple of corners. Skill and bravery in equal measure there from Jorge Martin. Somehow from the middle of the 3rd row of the grid, he leads this sprint.
And the damage for Fabio Di Giannantonio, his front wheel went skywards off the line. He is down in 14th place. His sprint or his start demons persist.
Yeah, it was the whole shot device fully engaged there, because straight away as he dropped the clutch and grabbed a full of a handful of throttle, Jack saying it looked like it was engaged. So the start gremlins roll on for Fabio Di Giannantonio. But what a start of Jorge Martin's career made here in this Le Mans sprint. Absolutely sensational.
Another rider who had a poor start was Alex Rins from 12th back to 20th now. He's just past Jack Miller. This then is the battle for 2nd place, and this is Bagnaia looking to get on with it and get past his fellow Italian Bezzecchi.
Yeah, and here comes Acosta on the inside of Mir. Picks up the Honda rider going into turn 13. Mir himself was thinking about eyeing up a move of Marc Marquez ahead of him when he got picked off by Acosta. So at the end of that incredible first lap, Jorge Martin leads at the end of that opening lap in this 13-lap sprint, and a factory Aprilia 1-2. Bagnaia once again showing Bez's front wheel as we go into 3 and 4.
Yeah, the rider who's not having some early confidence or early joy here is Marc Marquez, who's back to 5th, down 3 places, and he's not exactly swallowing all over the back of Fabio Quartararo right now. If anything, he's nearer to Acosta. They're running 5th and 6th.
So Fabio Di Giannantonio started this sprint 1 row and 4 places ahead of Jorge Martin. He ended lap 1 3 seconds behind the Spaniard. Talk about a big twist early on here.
I think we lost Marini. Marini's gone down. Yellow flags are out in the 2nd sector. I think he's down at La Chapelle. So one of the factory Hondas is up in 7th place. The other one looks like he's out as we now look back from Marco Bezzecchi. Confirmation, it is Marini. The number 10 is down, and we're looking at the pole sitter of Pecco Bagnaia. But look at the lead that Jorge Martin's already pulling out.
It's been a sorry tell for Marini, having led. Jonas Folger's also gone down. Maverick Vinales' injury replacement. Marini's French Grand Prix started in stunning fashion when he topped FP1 yesterday morning. That already feels like an awful long time ago, doesn't it, for the Italian, who struggled for pace ever since. At the front front then. Martin is just streaking away at the front of this sprint. He's now over 8/10 clear of Bezzecchi.
Acosta's passed
Acosta's got through on Marc Marquez. Marc Marquez is going the wrong way here, isn't he? He said all season long, struggling for front-end feeling, struggling for confidence in the early laps, and this is biting him again.
Yeah, and he's being dropped at the moment as Mir's now swarming all over the back of him. Fastest lap of the sprint then at 30.6 for Jorge Martin. His lead is 0.8 of a second, but Marc Marquez down now 4 places from where he started, and any hopes of getting involved in the sprint. Mir now takes him. The 2020 world champion relegates Marc Marquez to 7th place.
This is unbelievable. Let's not forget this morning in Q1, Marc Marquez delivered the fastest ever and one of the best ever laps of this Ducati circuit here in Le Mans, but the Ducati rider, well, he's just engaged reverse gear. When have we seen this on so many occasions in recent years where Marc Marquez is just going completely the wrong way as Bezzecchi goes wide? Bezzecchi makes a right hash of the museum corner. That's a free move there then for Pecco Bagnaia. He snaps on the inside, so Bagnaia with a bit of a gift up into second.
It could be a key moment that for Bagnaia, because he looks like he was getting a bit impatient behind his fellow Italian. It's not as severe as some of the others we've seen, but you have to chalk that down as another sprint error for Marco Bezzecchi.
In FP2 this morning on worn tyres, Pecco Bagnaia looked absolutely awesome. Now then, with a bit of clear track ahead of him, nobody disrupting his lines or his braking markers in front. What can he do now to hunt down Jorge Martin, of course? Those two career-long rivals, former teammates all the way back in their Moto3 days. This is Bagnaia, certainly the best we've seen him so far, isn't it, in 2026. Pole position now up into 2nd place. In terms of the championship, Jorge Martin at the moment pulling 5 back on Bezzecchi.
So Marc Marquez now coming under a bit of pressure from his younger brother Alex, who's in 8th place. Got to give another shout out to Fabio Quartararo, who's running in 4th place at the moment and doing a low 31s at 30.5 though for Jorge Martin. Only Bagnaia looks like he's even got close to an answer right now.
Fair play to Moreira as well. On that last lap he passed the Gian Antonio and Bastianini. Awesome performance by the Brazilian rookie there. Top job by him. Successive fastest laps then for Martini, trying to get on with business here early on, isn't he? A 1:30.561. Yellow flags are out in the first.
I think.
Well, he's had a shocker. He has had an absolute shocker, hasn't he, Fabio the Gian Antonio? Any hopes he had of a medal going around his neck at the end of the sprint were ended with a disastrous start, and that's gnarly. That's a real gnarly crash there for Didier as he tucks the front going through turn 3. The momentum takes him through turn 4 as well. Fair play to the riders behind him that were avoiding any kind of contact there.
His teammate Frankie Morbidelli there, who had to go left right around the very outside of the racetrack to avoid him, so it's cost Morbidelli places too. Morbidelli is now running towards the back of the field himself. In fact, he is the last runner on track now, down in 19th place.
This is unbelievable. Quartararo then now into 4th place. But has anybody got the pace to go with Jorge Martin on that last lap? Martin and Bagnaia into the 130s. So too are Acosta and Mir. Joan Mir at the moment inside the top 6. Of course, on that last lap with that 1:30.8 that he delivered, that was also coming through on Marc Marquez.
Costa's going to attack into the recorder on. He's not had the best luck with this corner so far this weekend. A little better luck this time as he now moves through into 4th place. Not been a good lap for the French pair because Joan Zarco had a problem in the 3rd sector, dropped a further 3 places. He's now out of the points.
Bagnaia has got his head down, as you knew he would do. A 1:30.739 is Pecco's fastest lap of the sprint so far. That's just eaten into Martin's lead and got it down to just over a second. At the moment, struggling to go with that Ducati pace as we look at Jorge Martin. I remember in Qatar, in the very early part of his MotoGP career in 2021 on the Pramac Ducati, he got a sensational start.
He's already up to 4th
Negotiates his way through the plummeting Fabio the Gian Antonio. He's already through on Quartararo and Joan Mir. And then look at this. This is so bold. This is talent and skill absolutely off the scale. Around the outside of Bagnaia, Bezzecchi and Marc Marquez into 3 and 4. Absolutely unbelievable move this by Martin.
We usually shortlist the overtakes of the GP on a Sunday afternoon. There's no need bothering. Jorge Martin has already won it. That was an extraordinary first 3 corners. His lead continues to hover around about a second mark. It's 1.1 through the 2nd sector as we now follow the battle between the 2 world champions in 5th and 6th. The 2021 champion Quartararo now leads the 2020 champion Mir, and Marc Marquez stabilising the situation a little bit in 7th place. Once again, as we saw in the early stage of the season, those early laps, Marc Marquez a bit of a sitting duck, and then he gets up to speed, but the damage is already done today.
Jorge Martin's a serial sprint winner. 17 times previously in his Grand Prix career he's won sprints, but this will be one of the best. just for the start alone. You kind of feel that he deserves to win the sprint just for the first half a mile of it, because it was absolutely out of this world. Bagnaia is trying his level best to put some pressure on, as we've lost Enea Bastianini. It's been a pretty miserable Saturday for the Beast. That's his second crash of the day here. Bagnaia once again has just put in another PB lap, a 1:30.723, but that was slightly slower than Martin ahead of him.
That was Bastianini crashing out of 12th place, so that does promote Joan Zarco back up the order. That is the aerial shot looking at the top three. It's Martin a second ahead of Bagnaia, who's nearly now a second ahead of Marco Bezzecchi. No danger at the moment of Bezzecchi coming under pressure for third place from Pedro Acosta. It's now Marc Marquez that we need to keep an eye on as he now finally gets himself up to speed. He's now trying to find a way back past his former teammate Juan Mir.
On that last lap there was only 5 riders in the 130s. The top two, Martin and Bagnaia, throwing Marc Marquez into that equation as well, and the track out Aprilias of Ayagura and Ralph Fernandez, who are also getting into some pretty decent rhythm. Looking back into Shimano if we go, Fabio Quartararo there ahead of Juan Mir. There is Marc Marquez looking to make inroads the right way now in this sprint.
Well, Fabio Quartararo hasn't scored many Sunday points. He's just scored 4 of them so far this season. His best results have come in sprints. Remember, he was up in the top 6 in Brazil earlier in the season. He then took 7th in that madcap sprint in Jerez when he was able to navigate his way through all the chaos. This is another super Saturday showing from the Frenchman.
Yeah, it's been another awesome performance, this by Fabio Quartararo. Marc Marquez, well, didn't see this coming from the front row of the grid. Somebody further down the field has taken a tumble in the final sector. Yellow flags are out in sector 4.
What a miserable afternoon for VR46. It's Frankie Morbidelli, who very nearly crashed with his teammate at the chicane when he went down ahead of him. Morbidelli only made it a further couple of laps.
Yeah, the pace behind the top two, Martin and Bagnaia, is just slackening off ever so slightly here. Yeah, in the middle of 13 and 14 goes Frankie Morbidelli. Martin and Bagnaia, both 1:30.7s. And then you've got Ralph Fernandez, the only other rider on that lap 6 of 13 that was keeping himself in those 1:30s just with a 1:30.9. Ralph Fernandez at the moment outside of the point scoring places in 10th.
Alex Marquez doesn't have a great pace at the moment. He's doing low 31s. He's not closing in at any stage really on this group that we're watching. Just see him in the back of the picture on the Grassini bike. He's going to come under pressure soon from those Trackhouse Aprilias who are in the high 130s. Agura in a lap or two is going to be right up behind Alex Marquez in that battle for 8th place.
Bagnaia at the moment has just got nothing for Martin. In fact, the gap's just through the second split on this lap 7 of 13. It was as high as 1.3 seconds. Bagnaia slightly quicker through the third split. Deep into this last sector now we go. Turns 13 and 14. This, you're never going to get tired of watching this, are you?
Like a video game on easy mode.
Yeah. Get the place that they've just launched MotoGP 26, haven't we? Well, I think this is PlayStation mode, Xbox mode engaged by Jorge Martin. Look at this. Around the outside he's going to go of Bezzecchi, Marc Marquez and Pecco Bagnaia. Somehow from the middle of the third row of the grid through turn 4, he leads this Tissot sprint here in Le Mans. Look at that, there was contact there, big contact, wasn't there, between Quartararo and Bagnaia on the exit of turn 4, as our eyes were drawn, quite rightly so, to the sheer mesmerising brilliance of Martin off the line.
Put yourself in the crash element of Marco Bezzecchi there into the Dunlop chicane. He thinks he's covered off the 2 factory Ducatis, and he thinks he's in pretty good shape to beat this sprint, and he'll then look over to his right and say, how has my teammate got there? Jorge Martin was starting 8th on the grid. How has he just swept around the outside of me after the first 3 corners? A rocket start forward. So remember, he was brilliant off the line in Jerez on the Sunday. That was even better.
Well, just before it was lights out, I said the onus was on Marc Marquez and Pecco Bagnaia to try and defend against the lightning launch of Marco Bezzecchi. And in comes Jorge Martin. Yeah. Jorge Martin enters the chat, and in some spectacular fashion as well. What a start, what a start. One of the best starts you will ever see to any sprint or Grand Prix in your life. Is that start going to be rewarded? It should be, shouldn't it, with 12 maximum points here and a record 18th sprint win for Jorge Martin, and crucially in the World Championship, he's cutting Bez's lead in half here.
Yeah, and let's be fair, once he's got there, he's got the pace to quite easily lead this sprint at the moment. Bagnaia and Bezzecchi, crucially, teammate to Martin, has had no answer at this stage. Since Martin took the lead, he's just gradually been extending that advantage.
Said pre-sprint all weekend, he's had race pace, he's had the speed. Still at the moment, there's one small weakness, one area which Jorge's got to try and improve on. He knows it himself, just not quite getting the explosive pace that he's traditionally famous for in MotoGP. Out of a soft rear tyre on the Aprilia. I tell you what, Lewis, if he works that out, this field have got some serious trouble.
In particular, his teammate Marco Bezzecchi, who, as you say, is losing a big chunk of his World Championship lead at the moment. Bez can't afford another sprint slip-up here to throw it at the scenery, because he would lose that World Championship lead back again to Jorge Martin, which we thought was a remote possibility when this sprint began. Here is our battle of the champions then. 5th, 6th and 7th, Fabio Quartararo, Joan Mir and Marc Marquez. Some 9 MotoGP World Championships between them, and at the moment it's Yamaha's Quartararo who's holding off the Honda of Mir and the Ducati of Marc Marquez.
Yeah, potentially Quartararo's best sprint since Portimao at the back end of 2025, doing an absolutely sensational job at the moment. Nothing really going as far as fellow Frenchman Joan Zarco is concerned. He's actually at the moment behind his LCR Honda teammate Diogo Moreira, who's doing a brilliant job in 11th place. That might be as good as it gets as far as Moreira's concerned. He's over 2 seconds adrift of Raul Fernandez in 10th. Fernandez just had nothing, has he, for his teammate Ayagura directly ahead of him. The Trackhouse Aprilias have been in tandem pretty much for the whole sprint, but it's advantage Agura.
Agura is now right behind Alex Marquez, just 3/10 between them. You can just see them behind Marc Marquez on the 93. So, well, Joan Mir, who he doesn't like just riding around following people. He'd rather take risks trying to overtake, which is why we often see him crashing out of sprints and Grand Prix. But these will be some useful points for Joan Mir. But he's been staring at the back of that V4 Yamaha of Fabio Quartararo at the moment. At the moment, he cannot figure a way through.
Potentially a 3rd straight second place in sprints for Pecco Bagnaia. He might have feared the big challenge coming from one Aprilia, most likely in the hands of the 72 of Marco Bezzecchi. But Pecco Bagnaia knows more than anybody just how good Jorge Martin is in the Saturday sprint format. It was key, it was so crucial, wasn't it, in their battle for glory a couple of years ago in the 2024 MotoGP World Championship. And here he is once again from the middle of row 3. Absolutely incredible. I mean, I know Brad Binder came from 15th to win that wet sprint in Termas in 2023, but I just wonder if anybody's come from this far back in a dry sprint to actually win it.
No, very, very rare. It's so difficult to achieve. But Jorge Martin, as I've mentioned, the start is, of course, what we'll all focus in on. That will make all the headlines. That's what we'll be replaying over and over again on YouTube later. But his pace, once he's got there, is absolutely outstanding. No one can match it at the moment. And as you say, once he figures out qualifying, what a World Championship contender he's already proving to be. Well, what a World Championship contender. He'll be very, very difficult to beat once he's got the full package.
We've talked about it since the first practice start session of the season in Buriram. Straight away you could just notice the Aprilia is just planted, it's glued to the road when their riders dump the clutch. Jorge Martin, there's a lot of talent, a lot of skill involved, but also some engineering brilliance coming from Aprilia as well, because the way that RSGP fires off the line, unrivaled. Used to be KTM that was the most rapid starter in MotoGP. They've certainly lost that distinction.
Yeah, they don't lack straight line speed either, crucially, do they, on those factory Aprilias as well. This is Fermin Aldeguer running in 13th place. Of course, came from 20th on the grid, so he has made some decent progress in this sprint, but of course his sprint hopes were already damaged by his poor qualifying. Behind him is Brad Binder, who joined Aldeguer on the 7th row of the grid. At the moment, the sole KTM points are being scored by 4th place Pedro Acosta.
Yeah, you can see in the top left-hand corner of your screens the gap between Martin and Bagnaia. It's not closing, it's getting bigger. Martin in complete control of this Grand Prix of France sprint here, looking like he's on course for that record 18th sprint success. Further down, here's a trio of Yamahas. This is Jack Miller, still searching for his first points finish of 2026. Rins 15th, Toprak Razgatlioglu 16th, Miller 17th on the road, with Fabio De Gianantonio still circulating after remounting from his early crash. He's 18th.
So of course what it would mean as well, 2 laps away from being completed, Jorge Martin would remain undefeated in Tissot sprints here at Le Mans. Here is the big battle, I think, that we're going to be following in the final couple of laps, and it's the battle for the final 2 points positions as Alex Marquez comes under pressure and now gets overtaken by the fast finishing Ayagura.
Big head shake there as Agura's Aprilia picked up a bit of turbulent air Dirty air in the draft behind Alex Marquez as they power through the 6-gear first corner. That's scary for Agura. Big head shake at over 300 kilometres an hour. He kept it all gathered up there, didn't he, to make that beautiful move on the inside of Alex going into turn 3. Brother Mark, well,
stuck there, hasn't he?
Second place, let's not forget. Mark Marquez starting the sprint. Oh,
who was that?
Was that Alex? I think that might have been, was it Alex Marquez who's
just
gone
behind
down?
him, I think, who went down. Yellow flags naturally have come out in the second sector. It was
Fernandez.
It
was Ralph Fernandez,
who drops out. So we've lost to the Trackhouse Aprilia, who was just outside the points. And it's not been Ralph Fernandez finest Saturday.
You saw the blue blur. Apologies to Alex Marquez and to all his fans for letting their hearts skip a little bit of a beat. Alex is still in this sprint, albeit at the back end of the point scoring places in 9th. He just lost 8th, of course, to Agura. Brilliant job this by Quartararo, just extracting everything out of that factory Yamaha. But there's going to be just one lap remaining, just 4.19 kilometres standing between Jorge Martin and a record 18 sprint success. Focus is the key word. Mark Marquez has dumped it again. Well, this has been...
That's a mess as well.
That's a real mess. Mark Marquez, well, he's had some massive crashes of late. The big crash in practice in Austin, the high-speed crash out of second place behind brother Alex in the Grand Prix of Spain a couple of weeks ago.
Is he going to high-side it?
Oh, dear me. And more misery. It was all out of shape, wasn't it, going in? Lost the front initially, and then the rear grips, and this, he's just along for the ride. Passenger here goes Mark Marquez, and this is another monumental get-off for the reigning world champion. You can see the airbag is deployed. It's another absolutely wrecked and trashed factory Ducati GP26. Marc Marquez's day here in Le Mans started in blistering form with an all-time lap record. It ends, though, in more disaster. The World Championship sacrificing more crucial points. What is going on with Marc Marquez right now?
A Saturday afternoon nightmare for the reigning world champion. Glad he's up on his feet. There was a little bit of a hobble there for Marc Marquez. Hopefully that's as bad as it's got. So as the reigning world champion has a Saturday afternoon shocker here at Le Mans, the rider he replaced as world champion, Jorge Martin, is about to stick his hand up and tell everybody, I want a second title this year.
Yeah, looked like Mark lost the rear, lost the front, lost the rear, lost the front again. He was all over the place, wasn't he, going into turn 13. Well, this sprint here in Le Mans started in phenomenal fashion for Jorge Martin as he charged through from 8th on the grid. The sprint here is going to finish in phenomenal fashion for Jorge Martin as he takes the checkered flag first. It is a record 18th sprint success for the Martinator. What a ride, what a performance, what a start. One of the best starts you will ever see. Take a bow. Jorge Martin, he does take the checkered flag, 1.1 seconds clear of Pecco Bagnaia. Second from pole position for the factory Ducati rider. That's now 3 successive second places in sprints for Bagnaia. Marco Bezzecchi comes home in 3rd place. A podium for Bez, his first sprint medal of the season, but not what we expected. I think he was expecting much, much more. Acosta Quartararo, Mia Agura, Alex Marquez and Diogo Moreira. Brilliant job by Moreira. They are your point scoring finishers. Daniele Romagnoli, Jorge Martin's crew chief. No wonder he's smiling. He has seen some special performances by the number 89 down the years. This has to rank right up there with the very, very best of them. The Aprilia team radio. They are absolutely ecstatic. They are buzzing. That sprint coming from 8th place on the grid just shows the pure class, the pure talent, the pure skill of Jorge Martin. That's why he was the 2024 MotoGP World Champion.
Another special sprint from Jorge Martin. He's competed in 3 sprints at Le Mans. He has won all 3. Not quite in the circumstances as the previous 2 when he led from the front. He certainly didn't on this occasion. An extraordinary afternoon, an extraordinary start, and then he had the pace to break away. Jorge Martin's crew chief, Daniele Romagnoli, is with Jack.
Well, Daniele, I mean, what a start that was. The launch itself, the move around 3 riders into the first corner, and how much does this victory mean? It feels as though, as the guys have just said on commentary, that's Jorge telling everyone, I'm a world championship contender.
Well, I mean, I said to him, you are like a cat in the start, and he can jump, incredible. He's one of the best things he can do. But we were not the best pace. We missing 1/10 at least. But then a little change in after the morning session and qualifying. Actually, it was quite good. Well, championship is too early, but we are very happy.
I mean, you know, he's very fast on the sprint races, but like this, wow, it's a great race from 8th position, you know, it's good.
Incredible. The cat was purring today, Daniele. Congrats.
Thank you so much.
The cat really was purring today. An absolutely phenomenal performance that by Jorge Martin. Both factory Aprilias on the podium. That's more like it for Marco Bezzecchi in terms of Saturday afternoon performances. Yeah, he gives our camera a thumbs up. The two factory Aprilias split by Pecco Bagnaia. And what about the curious case of Marc Marquez in 2026? After all the spectacular fireworks of this morning, when that absolutely awesome 129.288 made him the fastest ever rider around this Le Mans circuit, more drama, more pain coming the way of the reigning world champion for that massive get-off when he was at the back end of the point scoring places at turn 7. All the plaudits though, and quite rightly so, all the headlines will be hogged by Jorge Martin. What is it about sprints and Le Mans with this young man? A special stoppie in front of the packed grandstands here. Of course, predominantly they were here to see Fabio Quartararo and Johan Zarco fight for the win. The next best thing though was witnessing something really extraordinary, and that start from Jorge Martin was just breathtaking.
One of the best starts I think you'll have ever seen, anyone will have ever seen in MotoGP history. And it's kind of fitting, isn't it, that the sprint podium and ceremony will take place on the grid where Jorge Martin began his incredible rise up the order from 8th to 1st in the blink of an eye. Marc Marquez very sore as he climbs off the scooter there. He can barely walk, look, barely couldn't put any pressure on his foot there, Marc Marquez. Dr. Angel Charcha waiting for him. It's a sorry sight for Marc Marquez, who has picked up his bruises over the course of 2026 already. This, the most bruising yet.
Oh, it's tough. Sometimes it's tough at the top, and having got himself back to the very top last year in Japan, Marc Marquez beats himself up once again. This was a nasty one, real nasty spill that for Marc, and as you can see, he's really beat himself up once again. Let's hope he is going to be A-OK. MotoGP medic Dr. Angel Chartra immediately on the scene to attend to Marc, but that just adds to a sequence of real heavy get-offs in 2026 for Marc. You think of Austin, you think of Jerez, and now today in Le Mans. But when you think of sprints in the modern MotoGP era, you think of one rider, you think of one superb talent, because Jorge Martin takes his winning count now in sprints to 18. It's sprint podium number 33. An embrace with a Aprilia tech guru there in the spectacles, Fabiano Sterlachini. What a job he's done to turn this Aprilia into the dominant force right now in the MotoGP World Championship. And that gap, it is just 6 points now between Bez and Jorge Martin at the top of the championship.
And as we were touching upon off-air, Marc Marquez is now 51 points off the World Championship leader, Marco Bezzecchi, and you've got to say another show of strength for Aprilia today. They've been sort of in and amongst the pack through much of the weekend. Of course, for much of yesterday, we weren't certain that Martin or Bezzecchi were even going to be in qualifying too, but they've ended up with a gold and a bronze from the Saturday sprint.
I think Pecco just said to him, what the hell happened at the start there? I mean, it's like there's a nitrous button on that factory Aprilia. I mean, without any question, the best starting motorcycle in Grand Prix motorcycle racing right now is that factory Aprilia. Enjoy it, Jorge. So many dark moments that he had to go through in 2025. He wasn't even at this French Grand Prix here last year as he was beginning yet another long recovery and rehabilitation, but he's the sprint winner here. Marco Bezzecchi takes his first sprint podium of 2026. Still the world championship leader. Let's get Bez's thoughts for Jack.
Yeah, we'll just let Marco put the cap on. Well, you've stood on a podium so far this year on a number of occasions, but does this feel like a weight off the shoulders to have a success on Saturday?
Yeah, I'm very happy. Of course, it was a tough race. I wasn't feeling very good. So happy to grab this result and struggling, but always fighting. So very, very happy. Big thanks to my team, to my guys, to all the factory in Noale, to the academy, Vale, and all the stuff. And now we think about tomorrow.
Great job, well done.
Thanks to the fans as well.
Yeah, thanks to our awesome French fans. Marco Bezzecchi will be looking to strike back tomorrow. Of course, he was the Grand Prix winner here in France, on a then Ducati back in 2023, a memorable day when he won the 1000th MotoGP race. That is sprint podium number 12 for the 27-year-old Italian. Pecco Bagnaia had a strong Saturday, pole position, didn't quite have the pace for the sprint win, but it's 3 successive second places in sprints. Let's get the thoughts of the Italian with Jack.
Well, Pecco, it's back-to-back sprint podiums, but I imagine this one means a little bit more to have finally showcased the speed and potential we all saw before the season got underway. How much does this one mean?
Surely much happier than the one in Jerez, because this one was forward and the pace was good. So really happy. We're still missing something compared to Aprilia, but we're improving. So let's keep working and hoping that tomorrow will be a good weather. We will have a good weather, because I think we can have good results.
Top job, well done.
Thank you so much.
It was a top job, and let's not forget, despite what's happened to him over the last 18 months or so, you look at a top rider, a top MotoGP world champion himself back in the day. But I think he's probably walked over to his crew there and just gone, we need to find something at the starts, guys, to try and get on par with Aprilia, because Jorge Martin, with a sensational start, then eventually wins a sensational sprint. Jorge Martin, 18 sprint wins, and he's with Jack.
Jorge Martin, what a start that was, from 8th on the grid. The launch was unbelievable, to then roll around the outside of 3 riders into the opening corner. How did you pull that off?
Yeah, thank you. I can say vive la France, perché I love this track. Today I struggled a bit in qualifying, but I knew my potential was much higher. I just put all my determination into the start. I didn't expect to be first position in the second corner, but from that point I just pushed like in the past, what I am used to, alone, boom, 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 and yeah, merci beaucoup. I'm really happy. Let's go for tomorrow.
Great job, well done.
Fantastic job. No wonder he's enjoying these podium celebrations. The last time Jorge Martin competed here in Le Mans, he went on to complete the win double in 2024. Does another double beckon then for Jorge Martin, who without any question is a serious, genuine, bona fide world championship contender in 2026.
Yeah, and are we already starting to see a championship that will be between the two factory Aprilias? Still very early in the World Championship, but Fabio Di Gianantonio, who started the day 3rd in the World Championship, he had an unmitigated disaster which began at the start. He later crashed out when running in 14th place, and Marc Marquez scoring nothing today too. Pedro Acosta takes 3rd place back in the World Championship today after he finished in 4th place. The first sprint medal then of the season for Marco Bezzecchi. It's a 13th in all in his career, and he more than doubles his sprint points tally for the season with that. It's 3 silvers on the bounce now for Pecco Bagnaia. 2 of them second to Jorge Martin, although not quite the heartbreaking fashion of Austin. Well, he deserved a gold medal for the first 3 corners alone, and once he got to the front, there was no stopping him. 3 sprints, 3 gold medals on Saturday afternoons at Le Mans for Jorge Martin.
Pretty good as well, and then he finishes with a gold medal number 18 around the neck of a rider who is announcing himself as a big title contender in 2026. Fabio Di Gianantonio and Marc Marquez, two top Ducati stars in that sprint who had real off days. After promising qualifying sessions this morning, both of those two crashing out of contention after a nightmare start for Fabio Di Gianantonio from fourth on the grid. There's no nightmare starts, it's just dream getaways right now, isn't it? If you're on a factory Aprilia. Sort of, my mind goes back to Jorge Martin's MotoGP debut in Qatar in 2021. I think he was 14th or 15th on the grid, and he was almost leading. In fact, he might have been leading in the first corner. He has always been a dynamic starter. Moto3, Moto2, MotoGP, whichever class he has been in. But Jorge Martin, well, he absolutely nailed the start here today. That was the platform for his record-breaking 18th sprint. Game on in the championship, game on for glory as well tomorrow in the French Grand Prix. As Jorge Martin powers the Aprilia out of the final corner. Here he is, steady on Jorge. He's already crashed after a sprint success in Austin this year. He almost went down again there. Absolutely brilliant performance though by the Martinator. After all of his injury woes, all the physical and mental pain that he had to endure throughout 2025. Well, he's back. He is back and some. Massimo Rivola, Aprilia Racing CEO there on the left-hand side of your picture, congratulates the 28-year-old Spaniard who, after an early crash yesterday at turn 9, has bounced back in superb fashion. Jorge Martin wins sprint number 18.
And remains unbeaten in sprints at Le Mans. Martin from Bagnaia and Bezzecchi. That was your 1, 2, 3, which was set from a pretty early stage. Pedro Acosta coming through to 4th. Fine ride from Fabio Quartararo to hold off Joan Mir for 5th and 6th. Marc Marquez then crashing out of 7th, which promoted Ayagura, Alex Marquez, and Diogo Moreira. Of course, Ralph Fernandez also crashing out late on. Diogo Moreira scores his first sprint point. Miserable day for Fabio Di Gianantonio. His problems began as soon as he left the line, and Marc Marquez, who was set to finish 7th, crashing out in dramatic fashion with a couple of laps remaining. Which all means this: Marco Bezzecchi's lead is cut from 11 down to 6 points over Jorge Martin. They are now way clear of the rest. Pedro Acosta takes back 3rd place, but he's 36 points off the World Championship lead. One ahead of Fabio Di Gianantonio. Marc Marquez is now 51 points in arrears in 5th place and just 2 points ahead of his brother. Aprilia, of course, extend their Constructors' Championship advantage with their victory today. They're now 22 clear of Ducati. Aprilia Racing, they have double the points now of their nearest challengers, which are their colleagues at Trackhouse. Red Bull KTM and Ducati Lenovo both leapfrog VR46 today. This is the latest then. Marc Marquez unable to put any pressure at all on his right foot, hopping out of the Ducati truck, perhaps heading for some medical attention and treatment, which has to put his participation in tomorrow's French Grand Prix in a little bit of doubt. We wish the reigning champion all the very best. Well, here are the highlights and the defining moment in the sprint. That all came in the first 4 corners. Pecco Bagnaia from pole position, but the fast starting Aprilias immediately making their presence felt. Miserable start once again as Fabio Di Gianantonio continues to have problems getting his Ducati off the line. Marco Bezzecchi already in the lead himself by this point as he then defends from Bagnaia and Marc Marquez. Jorge Martin makes a mockery of them round the outside, 4th to 1st on the brakes and around turn 3. Was 8th off the grid. Extraordinary start from the 89. Marc Marquez was having all sorts of problems, also passed by Pedro Acosta before Joan Mir piled on the agony, taking away 6th place. Into the museum corner, Marco Bezzecchi skated wide. That released Bagnaia up into P2. And Fabio Di Gianantonio's misery was compounded by a crash out of 14th at Dunlop. Pedro Acosta looked like he had the pace to get clear of Fabio Quartararo's Yamaha, and he made the move into Record 1. That would secure him 4th. few riders ultimately would come unstuck at the double right-hander to close the lap. Enea Bastianini was one of them. Frankie Morbidelli was the next, but in hugely dramatic fashion. Marc Marquez would be the last. Initially the front went, then the rear spat him over the top, and it's his right foot that Marc Marquez would appear to have injured. You can see it there, slapping down on the tarmac. We hope that Marc Marquez hasn't done any significant damage to his right foot. But doing the damage today, in a championship point of view, was Jorge Martin. Supplimenti is the message from Aprilia. The message from Jorge Martin is clear. He is a big World Championship contender this season as he cuts Marco Bezzecchi's lead down to just 6 points. Join us tomorrow. Rain or shine? Well, you'll have to find out. But don't miss the French Grand Prix tomorrow. We will see you there.